Where are we? Here? Oh, you doing good? People watching online, Kristen. So I'm Congressman Jim McGovern, and I'm happy to be here with my colleague, Congresswoman Lori Trahan. We're here at Growing Places, which is an incredible organization that does so much to help people who are in need, who want access to good, nutritious food, but also it's a godsend for our local farmers. And we're also here with Gardner Mayor Mike Nicholson, State Senator Peter Durant, State Rep John Zlotnick, Representative Matt Colcoyne, Representative Natalie Higgins, Representative Whips, and we're here with Ayn Yeagle, the Executive Director of Growing Places. Let me just begin by saying, I have spent a lot of my time in Congress working on how to end hunger, how to address the issue of food insecurity, and how to make sure people have access to more nutritious food. And we have been doing a tour all throughout Massachusetts, highlighting some of the good things that are happening in our community, like the stuff that's happening here at Growing Places, which is something that we love to replicate not only all throughout Massachusetts, but all throughout the country. But we're also here listening to people with lived experiences talk about the struggles of being able to get access to good food. We've talked to some of our farmers about the challenges that they face. And quite frankly, it is frustrating for us in Congress because we ought to be fixing these problems. Hunger is a political condition. It is a solvable problem. And we have the money. We know what to do. We have the infrastructure. We have everything but the political will. And we're doing these tours to try to help focus more attention on these issues, and also to help create the political will. The Trump administration and Republicans in Congress, I think, are making things more difficult for people. I should say, it's not that I think that they are making things more difficult for people. They're driving costs up. Food prices are at an all-time high, and at the same time, they are cutting benefits like SNAP. They've put new work requirements in place, more red tape for people to have to jump through in order to get this benefit. And the benefit has been cut. It's only on average about $2 per person per meal. People can't live on that. People can't afford groceries on that. So they rely on food pantries and places like Growing Places to make up the difference. And after at the end of the year, we're going to see a $200 billion cut in SNAP take place. $200 billion. And we're being told by Trump and the leaders in Congress that they need to do this in order to be able to save money. Well, I got a better idea. How about let's not give billionaires a tax cut? How about not give multimillionaires a tax cut? How about take that money that you're spending on tax cuts and put it toward making sure that nobody in this country goes hungry? Let me just finish with this. We're the richest country in the history of the world, and 46 million of our fellow citizens are hungry. I'm ashamed of that fact. It doesn't have to be. We ought to be able to alleviate this problem once and for all. And by the way, to not address this issue is more costly. We had conversations about senior citizens in our community, who are struggling to put food on the table. They're taking their medication on an empty stomach, and they end up in emergency rooms. We're blessed that we have a state legislature and a governor here who's championed free school meals. That's great. But if a kid is not being fed over the weekend, lots of luck having that child be able to pay attention on Monday when they go to school. Workers who are hungry are less productive in the workplace. And by the way, the people who we're talking about who need this assistance are not just those who are jobless right now. Increasingly, it is working families. Working families can't make ends meet. And so, look, this has to be more of a focus in Congress. We're about to take up a new version of the Farm Bill next week when we reconvene. It's a lousy bill, I'm going to tell you in advance. Does nothing to reverse the $200 billion cuts in SNAP. It's taking us in the wrong direction and doesn't do a damn thing to help our small and medium-sized farmers. Our farmers are our heroes in this community, and we need to treat them as such. And so I'm lucky that I have a great colleague and an ally on this fight, Lori Trahan, who I'm thrilled is here, and I'm thrilled that she is championing these issues as well. And I'm happy that I'm in her district, and I want to turn this over to her.
Thank you, Jim. I just want to thank Congressman McGovern for leading the hunger tour across the state of Massachusetts, but in all of his years of Congress, for never backing down in the fight against hunger. I want to thank all of our state partners and our local partners, our farmers, our volunteers, the people who have dedicated their lives to making life easier for people in their community. And I want to thank Growing Places for hosting us. What you have built here is extraordinary. It's a shining example of what is possible when farmers, nonprofits, volunteers, local leaders come together around a shared purpose. And they're strengthening our local agriculture, reducing food waste, helping families put healthy, nutritious, locally grown food on the table for their children. And that is what community looks like. It's what smart public investment looks like. And it's exactly why it's so infuriating to see senseless, broad federal cuts that put work like this at risk. Made drastic cuts to SNAP and shifted massive costs to states like Massachusetts. Those cuts do not just live on paper in Washington. They ripple out to places like to farmers, to seniors, to parents trying to make ends meet. And I want to be clear about why those cuts are being made. They were made to pay for a massive tax increase in funding for ICE that is terrorizing and fueling chaos in communities across our country. They were made to fund militarized immigration enforcement that is going after families, kids, and grandparents. They were made to help finance a tax cut that overwhelmingly benefits the wealthiest 1% in our country. Think about that. I mean, just taking food out of the mouths of our children to help billionaires afford another private jet, to expand enforcement actions that are ripping families apart. Well, it was great to start my morning here because Growing Places shows us what government should be doing. Partnering with communities, strengthening local food systems, supporting farmers, helping families put food on the table. Republicans in Washington chose to slash food assistance and hand the benefits to the very top. And that's the wrong priority. It's morally wrong and it's economically reckless. I will stand with Jim and the entire Mass delegation, the entire Democratic caucus, to fight to protect SNAP, to defend programs that expand access to fresh food, and to make sure organizations like Growing Places are supported, not undermined. Because in Massachusetts, we believe in feeding families, supporting our farmers, and investing in our community. Now, we're here not just because we stand with Growing Places and organizations like it, but because we're committed to reversing these cuts so that organizations can continue serving families in need across our Commonwealth. And with that, I want to hand it over to a person who's dedicated her life to making sure that families have what they need to thrive. And it was such a privilege to walk through the doors today and to see the organization that she has built, probably on a shoestring at times, and a very unpredictable one. Ayn Yeagle.
Thank you. Thank you, Thank you very much. So I certainly don't do this alone. I do this with 20 staff and a community, and they all allow this to happen. But when we talk about a good economic investment, I think about, and I'm going to read some statistics to you, but what we can do with a small amount of money and 20 caring individuals, amazing board, an amazing community foundation, and supportive political leaders like the mayor, who's actually our landlord in Gardner. So since 2001, Growing Places has supported small local farmers and households experiencing nutrition insecurity across the 27 communities of North Central Massachusetts. That's 800 square miles that we're covering. We now serve as the mid-tier backbone of our regional food system through our food center here in Gardner and at a new local food storage facility in Pepperell. We aggregate, store, lightly process, and distribute locally grown and hyper-locally grown produce across North Central Mass and to food distribution partners that reach others across the state. In 2025 alone, Growing Places moved 265,485 pounds of local produce, valued at nearly $500,000. That investment supported 39 farmers, 29 from right here in North Central Mass, while reaching 3,190 households and 27 institutional buyers, serving more than 28,100 individuals. We did that with 20 people, including 8 youth. As a nonprofit intermediary, we return 70 cents of every dollar directly to farmers, compared to roughly 20 cents in the conventional food system. We leverage federal nutrition programs and grants to subsidize equitable local food access, just as the federal government subsidizes commodity crops and large-scale agriculture. This is how we build a strong, resilient local food system and economy. 2 federal programs have been especially critical to making this model work: the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program, LFPA, and SNAP. After 3 years of success, LFPA was eliminated in March of 2025, just as Massachusetts had received its round of funding for distributions to organizations like Growing Places. This was a direct hit to both farmers and families. LFPA was specifically designed to strengthen the local food value chain, connecting local farmers to food insecure households using mid-tiers like Growing Places in order to make that happen. While it operated in Massachusetts, LFPA invested $11.3 million directly into farmers and fishermen, generating $19.3 million in statewide economic activity because of the double down effect that the local food system has. Nearly 500 producers participated and 31 organizations, including Growing Places. We distributed Massachusetts grown food across more than 700 community sites. Here in North Central Massachusetts, as a result of LFPA, Growing Places purchased more than $800,000 in local produce over the 3 years, reaching 11,747 nutrition insecure households through more than 50 community partners participating with us, including Gardner CAC, the Winchton CAC, and Ginny's Helping Hand, all of who are here today. LFPA strengthened farms and fed families at the same time, and then it was gone. And as devastating as that loss has been, SNAP instability has exacerbated the chaos. Recent changes to SNAP, including the unprecedented benefit freeze in late 2025, have sent shockwaves through our local food economy. When families lose SNAP, the impact doesn't stop at the checkout line. It ripples outward to retailers, distributors, and ultimately to farmers. In Massachusetts, households cannot access the Healthy Incentive Program without SNAP enrollment. So when SNAP participation declines, farmers lose HIP sales too, compounding market losses already caused by LFPA's elimination. The result is clear of these program elimination and or abrupt changes. More nutrition insecurity for families, fewer reliable markets for farmers, greater instability across local food economies. And we must remember, most of Massachusetts farms are small and very small operations. They operate on razor-thin margins. They depend on stable, values-based markets like LFPA, SNAP, and HIP. Without critical public investment to sustain these programs, we are at a real risk of losing local farms, not just businesses, but the backbone of our regional food system and our rural economy. This is not simply about food assistance. It is about economic resilience, it is about public health, and it is about farmland preservation. And it is about the survival of local agriculture in Massachusetts, including the more than 180 farms in north central Mass. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And let me, I'm just going to close with this. I do a radio show every Thursday, and the interviewer every week asks the same question at the end of the interview. He says, what gives you hope? And what gives me hope are organizations like Growing Places, what gives me hope are the people who are here, who are trying to address this problem in our community. You care about people in this community. It means a great deal to us. And Lori and I are in Washington, and we're trying to fight the good fight. But quite frankly, Washington has become a place where trivial issues get debated passionately and important ones not at all. This is important. Whether or not people in our community have enough to eat, whether our kids are getting the nutrition they need to grow up to be healthy adults, whether our seniors have access to nutrition so they can remain healthy. This is important, and this is a solvable problem. And we are doing what we can to try to generate grassroots support and the political will to put pressure on our colleagues and pressure on this administration to reorganize their priorities. This is a hell of a lot more important than a tax cut for a multimillionaire or a billionaire. This is much more important than building another wing on the White House or renaming the Kennedy Center after the current occupant of the White House. We need to focus more on this issue. And we need to educate people in our community who are buying the BS that's being told to them from Washington, that somehow all we're going after is fraud, waste, and abuse. This is not about fraud, waste, and abuse. The SNAP program is one of the most efficiently run federal programs that's in existence. That is just a fact. And again, the growing number of people who are needing SNAP are working families. They're doing everything right. They're working harder than ever, and they can't afford to feed their families. There is something fundamentally wrong with that. And so, we're going to go back to Washington. We're going to fight like hell for programs to help be wind at the backs of some of the organizations that were represented here today. We are grateful to those who participated in the roundtable, those who shared with us their lived experiences, and again, to everybody who's working in this area, from the bottom of our hearts, we are grateful. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
All right.